Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to kerrylutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
$14.90 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. Have you dealt with a psychopath either at home, at work, or in a public place? If you have had any experience dealing with such individuals, Duane is on the line right now to explain to you who they are, what they want, and how to handle them. Chris, welcome back and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you.
You just wrote a couple of pieces about psychopaths and their vital contribution to the current American climate. What's a psychopath and how do you avoid them?
I think for the most part, we've all run into psychopaths, in our lives. I mean, they could have been the bully. They could have been the over-aggressive teacher. They could have been the cop that, writes you up 12 tickets. They could have been an ex-girlfriend, an ex-boyfriend, a boss. Somewhere along your line, you ran into somebody who actually took joy in making you miserable. And I have tried to really think deeply about where we are in the world. And while I came into my new vision of the world through understanding politics and money and what dollar is and all that other stuff, I come to realize that at the end of the day, these are all tools, and they're not really the root cause. So, I'll talk about silver to my eyes bleed, and how it's a cure for fractional reserve banking and debt and all the problems that we have on Wall Street and stuff like that. But the reality is that the central banks of the world would not be a problem if they did not have these psychopaths in control out to manipulate and control others. So the quick theory that I came up with is that there are only two kinds of people in the world, those that want to be left alone and those that won't leave you alone. And if you look at it, I believe the majority of society really wants to do what they want to do, love who they want to love, and be left alone. And then there's this other group of people who, will do anything to control you. The further you look down that road, you realize that up to 10% of the world's population suffers from some sort of psychopathic delusions. And there's basic characteristics that people have, and maybe not to all degrees or maybe not all of them, but we have a society that is breeding this aggressive narcissism on a industrial basis, and it is designed to normalize social, psychopath behavior in order to make those that own and control our paradigm seem normal and have the system work.
Right. So this is not a new development exactly, is it?
No, I have a quote from one of the videos that I did from Cicero talking about this before even Jesus Christ was born. I forget the quote, and it's a very long quote. But essentially, it's, we should not fear the enemy at the gates because we know their flags, we see their colors, they dress and talk differently from us. The one that we should be fearing is the one that dressed just like us and speaks the words that we speak. And they go across our walls speaking words of poison and destroying institutions from the inside. He finishes up the quote with, a murderer is less to be feared than this person that he was describing, and I think it's a problem in human nature because we don't see these social predators in our midst. In fact, we actually seem to benefit those. We actually seem to incentivize these people in their behavior. And if you look at it, all the people that are making the most money and have the most power, I guarantee you, if you look at these 14 traits of a psychopath, you'd say, geez, they're psychopaths.
That sounds familiar.
This goes from our entertainers to our legislators to our CEOs to, anybody that's in power, at a collectivized level, most likely needs to have psychopathic behavior, or else they would not have been able to rise to the amount to the power that they have. And the quote that I've been kind of beaten on is Lord Acton's quote that says, "Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely." And I said, no, it's not that power corrupts. It's that the corrupt seek power. Because I think the majority of humanity really just wants to be left alone. And then when, you get into these collectivized systems, which the psychopath needs to have, because they need to have a forceful, working together with other people. Because if people were to deal with the psychopath on a very personal level, they wouldn't deal with them. I mean, look at all these people in Congress. Would you have them over for dinner?
Oh, man, I would run if I saw them coming down the street.
Kids, and yet we trust these guys with $4 trillion a year and, world governments and all this stuff. And yet these are despicable people. I wouldn't want any of them over. And that's the thing that where I want people to see that, the people that want to be left alone, they like individual power. They like, being individual. They like having the freedom to do that. And the ones that have this social predator, psychopathic behavior, want collectivism because it forces them to get, to forces people to give them the best years of their lives. And it's very important because the biggest biggest weapon that the psychopath has is the lie. And they can lie without dropping a beat of sweat. And, it comes as natural to them as breathing. And yet that lie is the most important thing, because without that lie, they cannot convince us to actively or passively participate in the schemes that they have. And these schemes can be as small as a short con, this mortgage scam, frauds that happened all over the world. It was an interesting thing that all these mortgages were conducted by, thousands of psychopaths that created, liar loans, and they did it for the quick buck, for the instant gratification, never thinking about the people or the long term or anything else other than their instant gratification. And yet that whole thing is going to bring down the world economy.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because obviously my travels, I've met a lot of such people, and somehow they convinced themselves that merry-go-round was never going to stop. The piper was never going to have to be paid. Yep. So I guess what I'm saying is one of the prime characteristics of that socio/psychopath, and socio sounds better, but they're both the same. But the prime characteristic is to make themselves believe without any effort that everything they're doing is for the benefit of all, even though it's really for themselves.
They're all justifications. I before I even got into the psychopaths and the greatest truth never told, I had a quick discussion on cognitive dissonance and doublethink. And, the people have to first, lie to themselves in order to commit these things, because even the most remorseless psychopath, in his mind, he's doing good. And yet that's really what the psychopath does. And I don't even know if they're fully aware of how they operate or whatever. But first, the first thing with the psychopath is that they are hurt people. You've heard the comment,
damaged.
Hurt people. And it's a natural reaction for when people are mentally abused or physically abused, that the ego, the brain, wants to defend itself. And the first reaction that they do is they shut off their emotions, and they become unempathetic. And that's because they don't want to get hurt again. So they shut off their own feelings for themselves because they don't want to reflect on the pain that they've been through. Then in turn, they shut off their emotions for other people. And what is left is a hole. And that hole needs to be filled because, we have to be able to, we have to be able to live and survive. And they go about filling that hole through unemotional things such as wealth creation, or excitement, or partying, or all this other stuff. And I talked about the different levels. The low intelligence and low ambition psychopath ends up, in drugs and crime, and they'll be seen on the latest episode of Cops, and, and the middle intelligence.
I've seen that guy. I saw him.
Yeah,
they had to shackle his ankles and his wrists because he just wouldn't stop trying to kick out the window of the cop car.
That's right. Somewhere along the line, that guy got hurt, and he went down that path. And the middle intelligence and middle ambition psychopath, they'll seek power wherever they can get it, and that could be the DMV clerk, gym teacher, cop, something of some minor importance, and they'll lord over their power to so that they are the tough guy, the top guy. And again, they love collectivist systems because they love being in a system where they can't get fired for their behavior, or
not held accountable. Seniority.
Yeah, there's no accountability. People have to deal with them. They have to go through them, and they love it. And then the high ambition, the high intelligence psychopaths, they go to these 3 power centers, and I talked about this in The Greatest Truth Never Told, because to me there's 4 different kinds of power. But 3 of which are most obvious to people. There's political power, which is obviously in Washington, D.C. So if somebody wants to, of a high ambition, high intelligence, wants to seek the highest level of political power, they would naturally, gravitate towards Washington, D.C. And it doesn't mean that they're politicians. It could be lobbyists. It could be bureaucracies. It could be, a myriad of millions of jobs in the Washington thing. And if you look at it, their whole purpose and their whole existence is to regulate and control others. I mean, just January 1st, there was 40,000 new laws designed to regulate and control some part of our lives.
Yeah,
these were created by political psychopaths in Washington, D.C. Another level is financial control. So you have political power, you have financial power, and that's naturally found in New York City, which is where I was from, where you are, and you have these guys who, if their main motivation is money, that they naturally gravitate towards that. And I've watched very smart, well-meaning people go into the finance business, and you just see their souls being sold every day because they're doing something that they know is inherently wrong, but they, either think that it's right or they try to justify it or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're I've known bond traders and all this other stuff. They're enslaving people. They're feeding the fuel to a paradigm that sole purpose is to spread debt and death upon humanity. And until people start seeing what their actions are actually doing and supporting, and take away their walk away from it and no longer participate and be a part of it, the system will continue to spread and grow until it kills us all. And then the final power is the social power, and this is a more broader topic. It used to be just religions. That used to be the social power, and the religions and they've lost a lot of their luster, but it's been replaced by Hollywood and the media and more recently social media and computer companies and all that other stuff. There's a lot of power there. So for the third, power, you have that social power. People would naturally gravitate towards Hollywood or Silicon Valley or Madison Avenue in New York. And that could be anywhere from the narcissist starlet, who wants everybody to love her for being beautiful, to the Ari Emanuels who want to go out and dominate other people, like what was it, Ari Gold on Entourage.
Right.
These 3 powers give rise to the final power, which most people don't realize is out there, which is an absolute power. And these are the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Queen of England's and, the Putins. These are the big power players that, really call the shots around what's going on in the world. And, they use those other 3 powers to, run the world.
Right.
And, if I think it helps people to see in their own personal level, they see psychopaths in their own lives. Well, where do you think these people go after they've burned through all their friends and family? They go to these power centers and they rise to power. Mm-hmm. And when we see that, the guys that own and control our paradigm have this nature, wow, it kind of makes you, take a step back and saying, well, what am I doing? Am I supporting these guys somehow?
Yeah. So how do you avoid them in your day-to-day life? Really?
Well, I talk about the first and most important thing is identifying them. For the most part, most of the people that have, these characteristics like, lack of empathy, shallow emotions, transitory short-term relationships, lying, manipulation, they're just hurt souls, and they're really not a direct threat to you. They're really hurt themselves more than anything else.
Right.
It's the criminal, smart, manipulative, guys that have all these traits, that have power are the ones to be aware of. And for the most part, you either have a choice. You got the run or fight, or flight or fight. And my own personal experience fighting with them is not really an option, because they fight. They love fighting. They actually get energized from it.
They get power from it. Sure.
Yeah. They enjoy seeing people getting passionate, because it's almost comical to them that other people would have so much emotion, because they don't feel any themselves. They actually view themselves as a distance. So fighting with them really doesn't make any sense. What they do fear is the greater psychopath. So, if you're dealing with a minor one, you can present yourself as a bigger one, but that's really not even an option. But the other thing I think that they fear a lot is being exposed. Right. Directly confronting them is tough, because no matter what evidence you have, they lie so much and so easily that you would need so much evidence to corner them and to get it right and stuff like that. So really the best way of confronting them is to the threat of exposing them. Show them that what you have on them, and say, listen, right, either this stops or you go away. And chances are they'll go away, because they don't want to be exposed, because the psychopath cannot, by its nature, live by itself. It's a parasite. It's a social predator. They're not the ones that are going to go out and work hard and create stuff and work well with others and do all the things that it takes to create wealth in the world. They need to manipulate and thrive off of other people to work for them. Mm-hmm. But the best overall thing is just to shun them. I don't think people realize the power of the shun. Yeah. If you see them, if you get a nasty email, delete it. If you get a nasty phone call, delete it. If you run into them and they start going crazy, don't say a word to them. Just turn your back and walk away. Because it's the only way I found that's effective, because they love fighting and they'll never seek help. They always think they're right. They'll create as many justifications in their head on why you're wrong and why you don't see things their way. So the best thing to do is to shun them.
All right. And on that note, not to shun you, but I totally agree with you that avoidance with sociopaths, psychopaths is the best policy. And if you can avoid marrying them, that's a good thing too. And basically
working for them, and it's just be aware and prepared. That's that overall theme for the Don't Tread on Me site. Be aware and prepared.
And then if you can work for yourself and you're not a sociopath, then you're that much further ahead, right?
Yep. Surround yourself with good people.
That's the key, and that's what we try to do here on the Financial Survival Network. So we got your link to don't-tread-on.me and the Sons of Liberty Academy. And
greatest truth never told.
Yeah. Keep up the great work, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Take care.
Be well.